Hello, theatre heads, and welcome to another presentation by Theatre Conversations. Today we are talking about Boesman and Lena. Boesman and Lena is a one-act play written by South African playwright Athol Fugard. It was first performed in 1969. The play reflects the socio-political and personal struggles of its characters within the apartheid era. Since its original performance, Boesman and Lena has been widely recognized and remains an important work in South Africa and global theatre. So, let's get to it. As already mentioned, the play is set during an apartheid era, but Athol Fugard focuses more on the dehumanizing effect of apartheid and the resilience of the human spirit in the face of adversity. When the National Party established the apartheid laws in 1948, it separated people based on their races. But not only just the fact that they were separated based on their races, but it also divided them into and put them into these hierarchies. So then there were levels to how oppressed you were. So when it comes to the white race, obviously they were the oppressors, but then they never oppressed the people of color the same way, which is then you will notice, will see, and within the play, that as much as they first glance they look the same, Boesman and Lena and Walter, but you will notice that the treatment between the three characters is not the same, and that is based on the psychological implications of the racial hierarchies that was created by the apartheid system. And obviously we have the Group Areas Act, which then separated these races into different locations. So then the black people will be placed by themselves, the white people obviously live by themselves, the Indians will live by themselves, the colors will live by themselves, and so on and so forth. It was really a different time, and a time whereby there was so many laws restricting people of color. They had to carry a booklet with them wherever they went, which was called a Dombas, and they had to present that booklet at any given moment. So it's like, imagine you have to carry your ID book with you wherever you go, and any given moment, the police is going to stop you and ask you to present your identity book. And if you could not present your identity book, then you're going straight to prison. And so obviously people were living under this kind of oppression. It obviously made them feel hopeless and it made them feel angry and they were living in despair. But what Ethel Fugard seeks to do with his most of his plays, including Boesman and Lena, is to highlight the resilience that the people of color actually had living under the apartheid system. They would seek meaning and connection in their difficult lives, which is a reflection of strength and spirits of resistance amongst Black South Africans during apartheid. Athol Fugard has obviously a huge role, not just through Boesman and Lena, but through his work. You will see that Athol Fugard is a huge advocate and he is a vocal critique of apartheid. He highlights injustices and inhumanity of the system. His work is vastly based and centered around just giving a voice to the voiceless. Boesman is one of three characters. I will not be going in depth with this one because I'm sure you can read for yourselves. But what I'll do is I'm just going to outline the important things about each character and especially what they symbolize. So Boesman is a toxic male. He is abusive and he shows aggression towards Walter a bit later in the play. But I think the important thing is that we should look to sort of break down or analyze the psychological meaning towards his behavior. Boesman is probably feeling not like a man because of the oppressive system. And out there, he feels like he's nothing. And inside his house or shack, he wants to assert his dominance towards Lena. And so once a man feels as though he cannot protect, he cannot provide, he sort of loses his sense of self and who he's supposed to be as a man, and then turns to aggression, and he turns to forcefully trying to control situations that he outside there he cannot control because he's not the man. This character, the name Bosman is a reference to a racial classification system that was used during apartheid, which reflects the dehumanization and devaluation of individuals based on their race. So please do not go around calling people Bosman or a Bosman. Lena is more submissive and more passive compared to Busman, but she is a survivor. She is resilient and she is hopeful despite any hardship. Lena is obviously the one who receives the worst of it all. Not only just the racial um, oppression, but she also goes through the abusive husband and having to just deal with so much. And also, having lost a child, Lena then becomes a character who's also trying to find meaning and make sense of her life. And so when she sort of meets Walter, the dog, the stray dog, she attached immediately to the dog. And when she then met Walter, the human, she also immediately attached to the human. And I think the attachment came from the fact that she had carried a baby for 9 months and she felt that attachment to another person. But when the baby died, she sort of went her whole life seeking for that feeling and for that attachment and that presence of another being besides Busman, because her and Busman were not having they were not having a good relationship, but they just needed each other to sort of validate each other's existence. Lena represents or symbolizes hope and endurance of the oppressed people in South Africa. She stands as a reminder that even in the hardest conditions, there is there's a longing for connection, meaning, and a better future. These two represent a couple that is trapped by their circumstances and also a relationship that is under extreme stress. As soon as a relationship is going through so much stress, it will eventually become toxic and it will blow in your face. However, for the purpose of the play and the message behind it, it speaks into the existential philosophy that life is a hopeless void, but also these two characters need each other to validate each other's existence, and they cannot do without one another because for survival purposes. And finally, we have Walter, who was given the name Walter by Lena, who also named him after her stray dog, the dog that ran away when they were bulldozing their shack. So essentially, we don't know what Walter's real name is, but Walter is the black character who speaks Xhosa. And obviously, Boesman and Lena do not understand any Xhosa, so there is a miscommunication between the three characters in that case. Walter then eventually dies without Boesman and Lena ever really finding out anything about them. So we sort of get told the story of Walter through whatever it is that Lena interprets. Walter represents a marginalized and oppressed Black population under apartheid. He's willing to engage with Boesman and Lena despite their differences represents the desire for connection and unity among people who are segregated by the apartheid system. He is friendly and he is accommodating. And even in the face of prejudice, he is mistreated, but he is still a friendly guy. His role in Boesman and Lena then highlights the themes of racial division and the universal need for companionship and understanding. The themes in Boesman and Lena not only resonate with the specific historical context of apartheid, but also with the universal experiences of marginalization, isolation, the quest for dignity and belonging. The play Boesman and Lena explores the following themes: apartheid and racial discrimination, isolation and alienation, homelessness and displacement, identity and self-image, dehumanization and marginalization. Memory and nostalgia, language and communication, survival and resilience, social injustice and inequality, and finally, hope and despair. The playwright's influences. Athol Fugard, the renowned South African playwright, drew from several influences and sources of inspiration when writing Boesman and Lena. Athol Fugard was inspired and influenced by the following: apartheid and racial injustice, his own personal experiences and observations, existentialism, theatre of the absurd, social realism, literary and theatrical influences. South African culture and language, and finally, observation of people and communities. So, what were Athol Fugard's intentions behind Boesman and Lena? So when we talk about the playwright's intentions, we basically talk about how the play was received and also what was the playwright aiming to achieve using the play as a vehicle for thought or for change, or as a mirror, as a hammer. It's basically what Athol Fugard was trying to do with Boesman and Lena. So the first thing he wanted to do was social change and political commentary. He wanted human dignity and empathy, a reflection on identity and isolation, Confrontation and challenge. The play confronts the audience with the harsh realities of apartheid. He wanted Boesman and Lena to be a testament to the strength of human resilience. He also wanted to create work that would last for a very long time, and I think he achieved that because, well, it's still in the curriculum. He wanted to raise an awareness, basically, of what South Africa was going through when the play was performed internationally. And finally, he promoted social change through Boesman and Lena. Ultimately, Fugard's intention was to be a catalyst for social change. At this point in your drama career, you should be familiar with this stage and staging and how we use sets and props and costumes and blockings and levels to communicate or to form or create a makeshift or make believe sort of reality on stage. Here are a few things you need to consider when you are staging Boesman and Lena. First of all, the setting. You would need a few props or scenic elements to obviously create the Cape mud floods onto the stage, and obviously Fugard's setting is mostly very minimal. There are no elaborate sets, and the characters interact with a few essential props, such as their just mere belongings. And he used minimalistic props because of poor theater. On stage, your characters would pretty much only need the bottles that Boesman and Lena carry with them and also their belongings. And it's not like it's that much or that many belongings, just a few clutter here and there, and obviously the clothes that are on their back. And their movement on stage, they move around the stage often with a sense of restlessness. The physicality in their movements reflects their emotional turmoil and their constant search for a sense of belonging. The lighting of Boesman and Lena is often stuck and harsh, reflecting the unforgiving environment and the characters' struggles, which also comment on Brack's use of lighting. The structure refers to how the play or film unfolds, how the story unfolds. And Boesman and Lena has a cyclical structure, which means it ends exactly where it began. It doesn't follow your traditional well-made uh, structure with a linear plot, and it unfolds over single day and nights. Um, the dialogue is dialogue driven. The play is heavily reliant on the dialogue between Boesman and Lena. Their conversations often filled with bitterness, resentment, and frustration, which reveals their inner thoughts and emotions. As already mentioned in the previous slide, the structure of this play is cyclical, meaning that the beginning looks pretty much similar to the ending. However, it is important to note that the play also has flashbacks and reflections. So we have these fragments in the play that sort of come in and they're pieced together with the unfolding of how the story is told. And that is the end of our presentation on Boesman and Lena. If you found that useful, please leave us a like and a comment, and please subscribe to the channel. For one-on-one conversation, you can feel free to book a session with me on Superprof. The link will be in the description below. Bye!